Hello and welcome. I'm Manish Anand. In 2008, Richard Thaler wrote a book on the nudge theory. That theory has been quite popular in among the politicians in America and the Britain since then. A lot of politicians since then formulated their policies when they were in power according to the nudge theory. In fact, even Barack Obama did a lot of policy interventions on the premises of the nudge theory. This nudge theory talks about making or rather guiding people to do certain behavior and incentivizing them along with financial incentives so as to guide them for a predictable behavioral changes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi since 2014 has shown quite a liking for the nudge theory. If you take the example of Swachh Bharat, this again is a kind of a nudge intervention on the part of the government to encourage the people to go for behavioral changes as far as sanitation is concerned. And in the last 5 years, we have seen that Swachh Bharat campaign has been quite a success. So why I'm talking about nudge theory right now on the day of the budget when Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented apparently one of the longest budget speech in the parliament, which went on till 2 hours and almost 45 minutes. And in the end, she had to submit on the table of the Lok Sabha rest of the papers. Sitharaman has proposed that people will have, the income taxpayers will have choice. And that nudge theory talks about giving people the choice in place of making them to go for certain forced acceptance of the government policies. So the finance minister, in place of going for a full acceptance of the direct tax code, has given the people a clear choice that if they forego the existing exemptions and deductions, they would be liable for lower tax rates. That is, people will have to forego a lot of exemptions in ATC and several other provisions. In fact, there are more than 100 exemptions available to taxpayers, and Finance Minister has identified 70 of them which will go if the people choose to stick with the new tax rates, which has significantly lowered the income taxes for the new income tax regime. Last year, when the Modi government came back to power again after a resounding verdict, the anti-government gave quite a massive incentive to the corporate to go for private investment in the country by lowering the corporate tax, which was 30% to begin with when Modi became the Prime Minister in 2014. It was lowered to 25% and 22% for the new companies incorporated in the country. So there was a kind of a build-up of anticipation that the Modi government would do something for the middle class, which had not benefited as much in the last 5 years. So, so the government came up with this choice for the taxpayers, the salaried class, the traders, and even the professionals, that they can go for, they can opt out of the existing income tax regime, where they go for several kind of investments in public provident fund, insurance policies, housing loans, housing rent allowances, travel allowances, etc. So now, if somebody who is availing the interest exemptions on the housing loans, he is getting about 2.5 lakh every year. So almost about 6 lakh rupees are completely exempted because of these exemptions and deductions. But those who have not availed of the housing loans, they may benefit by the choice the government has given to them. and even those who are higher middle class and those who earn much more, they would stand to gain. In fact, one of my friends who is into corporate and also into political works, he did a simple Excel work and found that he would be able to save 92,000 rupees every year if he opts for the new income tax regime. That is on the offer for the people to accept, and they will have to consult their respective chartered accountants before taking a decision. So this is a kind of a choice that Modi government has again given to the people, that if they really want to opt for a newer, lower tax regimes, they can go for this. If all the taxpayers opt for these new tax regimes, the government will have to forego 45,000 crores of revenue every year. But it has to be seen how many people opt for this. This is the major takeaway from the budget as far as middle class is concerned. And the government did not exactly match the kind of benefit that was given to the corporate, which was to the extent of 1,45,000 crores. But that was in the backdrop of private investment in the country slumping to 16-year low. You remember that private investment in the country right now is at its lowest position. And private investment is principally considered to be the main stimulus to create employments in the country. If we take gross domestic product, the measure of the economic growth, then 60% is the consumer expenditure, 30% is the private investment, and 10% is the public investment. So for the last 3 years, what the Modi government has been doing was spurring the public investment through expenditure on construction of roads, ports, railways, airports, and so on. But that 10% is not good enough if you want to really create jobs in the country. And therefore, the consumer expenditure, which consists of 60% of the GDP, has to go up substantially. And that could be possible only if the people have money in their pockets to spend and go out in the market and buy products, which will incentivize the corporate to expand and also spur the private investment. So the nudge theory, which the government has adopted again in the taxation measures, is part of an overall economic policy architecture where the government is trying to spur the consumer expenditure, and which will also have a spillover effect on the private investment, which is already at the 16-year low. We should also know that the government has been trying to spur employment through various means, but unemployment is said to be about at the lowest position of the 42 years cycle, and there is hardly any pickup in any of the sector which can suggest that employment is going to go up in immediate horizon. There are many reasons why the private investment is at 16-year low. There are statistics which suggest that the private investments which had peaked in 2008, when it was at about 2,72,000 crores in that year, and from there it went into a downhill journey, and afterwards many of the projects, many of the companies became NPAs, the non-performing assets, which in other ways also dragged in the public sector banking institutions, which also whose books also became very bad, and that the government had to bail them out with capital infusion. So therefore, the whole cycle is there before us, and the government's fiscal position is completely strained. Only in last month, in January, the GST collection recorded the second highest collection, and we have seen that after the demonetization and the immediate rollout of the GST and a lot of apprehensions of the traders marred the revenue collections. So the fiscal position of the government is It's its weakest position. And if you know that in the last financial year, or rather last budget speech of the finance minister, she had projected a 25% growth in the tax collection, in the tax revenue. And in the period from April to November 2019, the government was able to the government was able to achieve only 2.55% tax revenue growth. So the government was not able to pick up enough revenue to give a major kind of money into the pockets of the middle class and the people at large. So in that context, 45,000 crores of forego on the part of the government by unveiling the new tax regime was the maximum that the government could have done. But that is, I think, not enough immediately to spur the economy, which will require a lot of collective efforts, including of the industry as well. Thank you so much for watching to contributors.com. Do subscribe to it, like it, and share with your friends as well. Thank you so much.